Welcome to Disruptor Confessions. This is a show where bold ideas, raw insights, and unfiltered confessions from industry insiders or disruptors, you might say, take center stage. I'm your host, and today I'm pretty excited because we're going to dive into the world of supply chain and logistics, an area around retail strategy and CPG, a little bit of consumer packaged goods. And our guest is no stranger to this. He's known for shaking things up. If you follow him online, he's not afraid to call it like he sees it. He certainly talks about things that others may not. So I'd like to welcome Britton Ladd to Disruptor Confessions. Britton, welcome aboard.
Oh, thank you. Really enjoyed speaking with you a couple of weeks ago, and I'm looking forward to today.
Britton, when we chatted, and I've been following you on LinkedIn, and I started reading some of your commentary and somewhat provocative posts. You're often more forward-leaning. You kind of look to what's coming and what's happening. You've been around the space a long time. You've advised Amazon. I mean, you've advised global brands. So I kick it off here. Looking at Amazon, looking at launching new business units, challenging the status quo. What's a common thread that you've seen through your career in this logistics and supply chain space?
Well, the primary thing that I've really noticed is that technology is accelerating and elevating supply chain and elevating logistics. And so when you look at a company like Amazon, the reason why Amazon is Amazon today is because Amazon understood years ago they had to master logistics. They had to master the supply chain. They had to master automation. And that's why decades ago, Jeff Bezos had made the decision that we have to invest in our infrastructure, which was automation, fulfillment centers, distribution centers, warehouses, and so forth. They invested in saying, we have to better understand what is it our customers need. And as they would bring on different categories and bring on companies in different industries, that absolutely forced them to have to expand their capabilities even more. So I would say the thing that I've noticed the most, it's really the advancements of technology and robotics that have also advanced supply chains and logistics.
So, you say Amazon, I can't help but remember, I think it was Scott Galloway that actually said, Amazon hasn't really figured out the e-commerce space. They figured out supply chain. Would you agree?
That's actually, that's an interesting way to put it. I would say they've certainly figured out supply chain. I think Amazon does a pretty good job in e-commerce for sure. So I don't want anyone to think we're criticizing Amazon, but Amazon is who they are because what they understood was this, and I've written about this and I've talked about this. My argument is the purpose of a supply chain is to do one thing, enable growth. And Jeff Bezos and the team from Amazon, they understood when they started the company that the way that they were going to be able to beat a massive company like Kmart and Walmart and these other retailers was that they had to leverage the supply chain to enable their growth. And they had to do things that no one else was doing. And that's really what Bezos and others at Amazon figured out over years is that we are able to do things no one else can because we've truly mastered the supply chain.
That's a good point. I think I'd like to kind of step back from Amazon a little bit and maybe just help us understand how you see what supply chain is. How do you see it from a broad 30,000 foot view all the way down to the handoffs at the ground level?
So the way to think of the supply chain is this. Let's take a pair of jeans that people wear, jeans. The supply chain begins in the soil when the cotton is grown. And then it's when the cotton is harvested. And then that cotton that's harvested is transported to a facility where it basically is turned into material for jeans or bedding or shirts. Then they manufacture the shirt, they manufacture the jeans, and then once it's manufactured, they have to ship it. That's logistics, that part of I'm now taking a finished product and I'm going to ship it. And since most apparel is manufactured overseas, they take all that apparel, all those jeans, and they put them into cargo containers. Those cargo containers go on to massive container ships. Some of those ships hold 14,000 or more containers. Then those ships travel across the ocean about 3 weeks. They get to a port of Los Angeles. They pull it to a port in Europe. They pull the cargo containers off. They unload them. They pull all that product off. Then that product has to go on a truck. So they have to then truck those products to distribution centers and warehouses located all around the United States. So that product now is inside a warehouse. Well, retailers need that product in their stores. So they either have product delivered to their own warehouses, or retailers leverage third-party logistics companies. The logistics companies receive orders saying Target needs 1,500 pair of jeans in these 3 stores. So what happens is, in order to get that product in the hand of the customer, it begins in the supply chain that started in the soil.
I love that you kind of broke it using that example. Gee, so I guess the last mile delivery is me going to the store, me pushing buy on an app, right? It's like that last mile delivery which is consumer user based. So listen, on that note, like, thank you for that overview. And it's great to use an example like that I think everybody can relate to. You've actually said, and I don't want to quote you, but paraphrasing, a lot of companies don't have a supply chain problem. They have a strategic problem, a strategy problem. Where do executives have it wrong right now?
The problem that I still see to this day, and I've worked with CEOs in many large companies, small companies, mid-sized companies. And the problem that CEOs have is this. Number one, very few CEOs really understand what is a supply chain. What's the purpose of the supply chain? A lot of CEOs don't have firsthand knowledge of what's really logistics, but what's the logistics I need for my company to make us successful? And the other thing that I see that CEOs get wrong is that they look at technology as, well, you know what? We have technology that helps us better ship our trucks. We have technology that better helps us manage our inventory. But what they aren't saying is this. We have invested in third-party relationships and partnerships with a company like Palantir Technologies. And Palantir Technologies takes all of our data across the enterprise of our company, across the entire ecosystem, globally. And they take that data and then they assess it, they basically massage it, they do all kinds of analysis on it, and they say, you know what, Company X, what you need is a supply chain that can do this. And your supply chain isn't allowing you to do that. Your supply chain might be able to move your products, but your supply chain cannot enable your growth because you don't have the right facilities in the right locations. You aren't accurately leveraging the right transportation modes, and your costs to run your supply chain are way too high. So this is how we're going to give you the power to affect change across your supply chain, but leverage our AI agents to better run and manage your supply chain. That's really what a CEO should do. But lots of CEOs, the majority of CEOs, they have a chief technology officer, they have a vice president of IT, whatever, and they use all kinds of legacy systems to run aspects of their business, primarily their supply chain. And what happens is they really don't have an efficient supply chain, they don't have an optimized supply chain, and they really don't even have visibility and transparency across their supply chain. They just get a bunch of data that they honestly can't make heads or tail out of. And that's why a lot of companies, although they're a well-known brand and you would think they would have a really efficient supply chain, they simply don't. A company that truly has one of the worst supply chains in all of retail is Target. And you would think Target would be masters at supply chain. And nothing could be further from the truth.
What's interesting about that, and thank you for calling that out, I mean, we're not talking about pennies either. A little move in this kind of logistics supply chain flow can mean millions, if not billions of dollars for a company, correct?
Oh, 100%. There are many companies that have supply chains that are in the billions of dollars.
And small adjustments can make major shifts in the volume of dollars that are going through that process.
Correct, 100%.
Left or right, going up or down in terms of revenue.
Oh, that's very true. And so the reason why I preach so much about the importance of really understanding your supply chain and having an understanding that you don't want point solutions to manage your supply chain. You want an end-to-end solution. And I'm a big fan of Palantir, but there are other companies out there that, again, give you this ability. But when you're talking about maybe shipping 300,000 or 400,000 trailers a year, or even maybe as 1 million or more packages a year, or having 1,000 or 2,000 stores that you're responsible for, being able to to optimize every aspect of that business and reducing your transportation costs, your supply chain costs by 2, 3, 4% at the end of a year translates into the hundreds of millions of dollars. And then when you make a big strategic move by opening up larger warehouses, getting rid of older fulfillment centers and distribution centers, but you open up massive warehouses that are fully automated with robotics, now you're talking about making a capital investment in the hundreds of millions of dollars. But over time, that will save you $1 billion or more.
This supply chain can be a massive opportunity for finding the leaky bucket, right?
Oh, correct. And most companies, that is where the leaky bucket exists. It's across the supply chain. It's somewhere within the supply chain. And when you look at a company and you wonder, well, why are their costs so high? Why aren't they making more money? It's usually because they're doing things on the back end to try and make up for a poor supply chain.
So listen, like, and then you mentioned, we talked a little bit about Amazon, talked a little bit about Target and some of the other brands. I know you've gotten deep into retail space, and it's interesting because Amazon kind of like started on the book selling and then moved into like everything. Target was never considered for groceries, now certainly can buy groceries. So just in broad terms, which major retailer or operator, if you're comfortable naming them, is in denial about their decline? What should they do? What should they be doing to avoid extinction?
So a company like Kroger, who, although is the largest standalone pure play grocery retailer, in their rearview mirror, getting much closer than they would like, is Costco. So Costco, who is not a grocery retailer, is actually selling almost as many groceries as Kroger does. And Costco is doing that from far fewer stores. And so there is a level of denial within Kroger that they're really in bad shape. They want to act as if, oh no, everything is going well. And I've written many times about the company. I know the company inside now. And what I've recommended is, number one, they have to hire a new CEO. They have an interim CEO. I've recommended they hire a man named Greg Foran. Greg Foran is who turned Walmart around and made Walmart what it is today in groceries. So I think Greg Foran would be an excellent CEO for Kroger. But Kroger has to figure out, so how do we have a better supply chain? Again, who should be calling Palantir? And Alex Karp should be the new CEO of Kroger. That's the first call, as far as I'm concerned, he or she should make. Alex, this is Britton. I'm now the CEO of Kroger, and I need your help. That's really what they should be doing. And if they do that, you'll see Kroger make transformational change and not incremental change. And that's the problem at a lot of companies. They're comfortable with incremental change and not thinking big and making a big move. And that's something that Kroger absolutely should be doing.
So you know this space way better than I, but is Sobeys on your radar out of Canada? Did they use Ocado? Did they use the robotics system?
Yeah, I believe it is Sobeys that has a relationship with Ocado. They've opened up, I think, one of their customer fulfillment centers. I don't believe they're going to open up another one, but it's interesting. I think Sobeys made a good decision in partnering with Ocado. Ocado thinks they could probably do with one more CFC, but the numbers really aren't there yet. But yeah, I think Sobeys has done a great job.
Is this also not pointing to the fact that there's parity? You can buy an Apple at a lot of stores. So isn't the supply chain a foundational opportunity for companies like Kroger and others that have challenges with maybe smaller or different vendors coming into their space? Isn't supply chain the underpinning opportunity?
100%. A company that understands how to leverage the supply chain to enable their growth, and a company that comes to market with products that are private label, that are in demand, they absolutely are proven to be successful. They have been proven to be successful. And that's what we're seeing of Trader Joe's, for example. Trader Joe's really doesn't have that many stores, but wherever they build a store, they take a lot of business. The company who's doing a great job is Aldi. By 2028, Aldi will have over 3,000 stores, making them the second largest grocery retailer in the U.S. behind Walmart. So Aldi, who only sells around 2,200 products, they're taking a massive number of customers away from these larger retailers. So that's something that's interesting because, again, they've really mastered the supply chain and they've done a great job of determining what assortment of products they really need in their store. Now, if you were to say, well, Britton, who's absolutely the worst at groceries and who has the best opportunity to improve, I'm going to say Target. So Target sells groceries, but Target throws away an awful lot of groceries that they don't sell because they don't have the right number of people coming into the stores. They're not able to attract a large number of consumers to come in and buy from them. And so one of the things that Target is looking at is actually forming a relationship with a company called Lidl, Lidl. A lot of people think it's called Lidl. It's pronounced Lidl. And Lidl's a grocery retailer in the U.S. Globally, they have around 10,000 stores. In the U.S., they have about 140. They're really good at what they do. They're growing. And so what Target is thinking of doing is opening up Lidl stores inside each Target store. And then customers would come in and Lidl would be the actual grocery retailer they shop at for all kinds of private label products, things that are really unique. It's kind of like a Trader Joe's experience. And then right outside Lidl would be Coke, Tide, Pepsi, and all of the branded CPG products. And I really hope that Target will do that. I like Target. It's just I'm disappointed that Target isn't doing a better job of understanding that they really must improve their ability to sell groceries because they're nowhere near as proficient at it as they should be.
So, we kind of went down the grocery line, if you will, no pun intended, but the groceries is a little bit different than retail products like CPG. Would you agree? And can you walk us through a little bit of that, how you see that?
So what makes groceries so unique is the fact that they sell fruits, they have vegetables, and the fact that product is perishable really makes it very difficult to run that business. You have to be able to do everything you can to sell the freshest of the fresh when it comes in, rotate the product, make sure you're always getting those sell by dates out there so people buy the product and you're not letting product expire and then having to dispose of it. So the thing that makes grocery also very challenging is that it's a very low margin business. Only about 1 to 3% margin on everything they sell, except for private label products. So the one thing that Kroger has done a great job on is that they have wonderful private label brands and their margins are about 40% on their private label products. So a grocery retailer that's selling 35 to 40,000 products in their stores, that's a lot of work to do, but they have ambient temperature product, they have chilled product, and they have frozen product. And all of those have CPG relationships. There are big brands, big CPG companies that are doing business with these retailers to get their products in the stores and on the shelves. It's a really complicated business. Frankly, it's one of the most complicated businesses out there.
The reason why I brought it up, you mentioned Walmart, you mentioned Amazon, you mentioned Target. These are companies, these are brands that I think most of us think about as going to buy, some deodorant or, maybe a blouse or a shirt or a pair of jeans. But then you can also run down the far aisle and pick up a gallon of milk and a loaf of bread. And I think that's new to people. Is that part of the challenge, that just changing the brand mindset for the consumer?
Well, it's interesting. So in 1986, Walmart opened up a full-size supermarket inside a supercenter. And that decision changed the future of grocery retailing forever. Because what Walmart understood is that when I have people coming into my store and they're buying jeans or a pair of shoes or something like that, they may not come back for weeks or months at a time. But if they can come in and see that they can buy groceries at Walmart and pay the lowest price, well, we know for a fact that people buy groceries on a weekly basis, sometimes multiple times per week. And that's what changed the future of Walmart as well. Walmart understood if I can get consumers to come to me for the product that they buy more than anything, which is groceries, I absolutely can capture them and have them come to me for many other things they buy, their everyday essentials, their apparel, their shoes, and things like that. And that's what Walmart has done so successfully. So Target wanted to do that. But Target was never able to create the same grocery experience. They've not been able to really set the price correctly. And so a lot of people who shop at Target walk right past the groceries they'll leave Target and they'll go drive to Walmart and shop. And the company that's experiencing that the hard way is the company Amazon. So Amazon has Whole Foods. They own Whole Foods. They're trying to make Whole Foods better. But the dirty little secret of Whole Foods is that 97% of their customers leave Whole Foods to go shop at another retailer to finish their grocery shopping. And the reason why they do that is Whole Foods doesn't sell products with unnatural ingredients. And so a customer who goes to Whole Foods to buy their Tunisian olive oil or whatever, they then leave the store to say, well, now I got to go buy Tide and Doritos and Frito-Lay chips, things like that. And then they go to a Walmart, they go to a Kroger, whatever, and they do that. And so the challenge is that even if you're a massive retailer like Whole Foods, and you would think everyone's shopping there and being happy there, they're not. They're only able to attract a small percentage of customers, and the majority of customers only buy the natural ingredient product there, and then they have to leave the store to go shop elsewhere. So it's a really challenging business.
So Amazon acquires Whole Foods. We all just pick up our phone and buy things. We want it in the same day. We pick up our phones and order it, and it's at our doorstep the next afternoon. Can I ask you on the Amazon side, Britton? I know there's some different things around lockers and local storage and that sort of thing for Amazon for delivery. Certainly during COVID, there was a lot of buy online, pick up in store, buy online, pick up at the curb kind of thing. Can you talk a little bit about, and I'm just going to ask you directly, what would you change if you were running Amazon logistics today?
In all honesty, I wouldn't change that much because Amazon has a really, really experienced team. And I'll give you an example. So the thing that Walmart has done is they have looked at what's going on across their industry in retail. And they've looked across the industry to see, well, what's going on in terms of groceries and food delivery and so forth. So the team at Amazon, the team who runs logistics and the team that runs robotics and so forth, they've gotten together, they've spoken about this, and they came up with this idea. And I actually had challenged them with this idea. But they came up with this idea that, the weakness that we have at Amazon is we have Whole Foods, but then you have Walmart with over 4,000 stores, 4,650 stores in the US. Walmart's great with logistics, as Amazon were great with logistics, but Walmart actually has a way to get customers to come into their stores, to sell their groceries more. And Walmart actually can use these grocery stores to fulfill orders to customers. They fulfill from the store. And so Amazon was really at a disadvantage. So the team from Amazon, the logistics team, they were like, wait a minute. What if we take Rivian vans and we put a robotic system in the back of a Rivian van that will fulfill groceries, fulfill orders, and we create an ability where customers can use an app and hail the store, which would be one of our Rivian vans, and they hail the Rivian van that comes in with has baby food and baby products on it. Or they hail the Rivian van that comes in with everyday essentials on it, razor blades, toothpaste, toothbrushes, and so forth. They hail the Rivian van that has meat on it, very well, very, very good cuts of meat. A Rivian van with dairy products and so forth. And so what happened is that they're actually doing that. And the goal is eventually to have as many as 15,000 or more of these vans. And so from a logistics perspective, what Amazon is doing is saying, we don't need to go head to head with Walmart and build the same number of stores they do. We just need to come up with a way to come up with a new definition for what a store is. And that's what they did. But it's because they're so comfortable with logistics. It's because they're so comfortable thinking big and coming up with big ideas. That's what's really allowing Amazon to do something like this. And in 2023, I had written this article where I wrote, is automation in the back of Rivian vans Amazon's next big challenge or next big opportunity? So when Amazon's team read that, they're like, you know what? I wonder if we could do that. It's 2025 and Amazon is already testing those vans. They've built those vans. They've built additional automation to support the program. And what's going to happen is if everything keeps going the way it is, you'll see these vans appear probably by the end of 2025 but certainly within 2026, there will be lots of these vans across the US providing customers with this capability. But it's because they're so good at logistics that they can really make something like this work.
Are they autonomous or not yet?
So all of the vans would have the ability to be autonomous. The reason why they're not is that many cities and states don't allow autonomous vans to operate. But these vans certainly will eventually operate autonomously, depending on which city and state gives the approval to do that. And the other reason why Amazon's logistics team is involved is that, well, if it becomes autonomous, then somebody still has to more than likely take some of the product out of the van and take it to a customer. So Amazon could use the Rivian vans that they use to make parcel deliveries, and they can become autonomous. But somebody still has to take that package to the house. And that's going to require some type of a robotics. It could possibly be a humanoid robotic that's made by Amazon. I actually broke that story that Amazon was building their own humanoid robotic. But Amazon's also testing humanoid robotics from Figure, Unitree, Agility Logistics, Agility Robotics, and some other companies like that as well.
So, Britton, I'm based in Los Angeles, so I see Waymos everywhere for about a year now. So commonplace that people don't even think twice to be next to an empty driverless Waymo. And now I'm starting to see Waymo vans being tested. Recently, literally as recent as yesterday, I saw a Waymo vehicle on the freeway. And I think it's the first time I've noticed that they're driving at that speeds on freeways. I believe you're based in Austin, Texas, or that area? Is that
Prosper, Texas, right outside Dallas.
So I think they're testing Waymos in Austin and a few other cities. Can I just ask you, we're going down this autonomous route. Can I ask you a couple things around autonomous? I've seen some of the warehouses Amazon runs. We talked a little bit about Ocado, some of the other capabilities. Certainly seeing some of these prototypes with drones dropping in packages. Just talk to me. Is this kind of autonomous robotic capabilities underhyped? Is it overhyped?
It's interesting. I wouldn't say it's overhyped or underhyped. I would just say that it's frankly misunderstood. A lot of people just don't understand what role will these products honestly play in logistics and the supply chain. But more importantly, a lot of people, even a lot of people in the media, don't understand what's going to happen when Waymo's technology and Tesla's full self-driving capability really becomes commonplace, not only in Tesla's vehicles, but other vehicles. And so, for example, we're talking about logistics, we're talking about autonomous vehicles. So let's use this example. So today, when a customer places an online order through Instacart, some type of a gig worker goes and picks that up and they bring the groceries to them. But if that same customer says, oh, by the way, I'd love it if you'd swing by Chipotle and pick up some burritos for me, well, a gig worker has to drive over and do that as well. And they usually will use DoorDash to actually do that. So when you have fully autonomous vehicles, either from Waymo or Tesla or whomever, what will happen is that the customer who owns that vehicle, they will just simply dispatch their vehicle to go to their favorite grocery store where they ordered the groceries from. The people at the grocery store will put those groceries in their car, and then that car will leave the grocery store and drive to that Chipotle, pick up those burritos because someone will put it inside the car, and then that car can come back home. Or what will happen is the person who owns that car will say, I'm on my way to the nearest Kroger and it's located here. And then I'm going to Chipotle and it's located here. So who would like me to pick up something from them within this radius? And customers, individuals could say, I'd love it if you'd stop at McDonald's. I'm just dying for a Big Mac. And so this is going to revolutionize logistics. And it's also going to kill companies like DoorDash, companies like Uber Eats and so forth, because the consumer now becomes an expert at logistics. The consumer now owns their own fleet that they can leverage for their own needs, but they can also hire that vehicle out to earn income, go make deliveries, and when all the deliveries are made, it comes right back to their house and parks itself. It's truly one of the most interesting aspects of logistics. It's something I've researched for multiple years. It's something I absolutely know is going to happen. but the transformational impact is just going to be incredible.
I actually witnessed exactly what you're talking about a couple of weeks ago. Happened to be in the west side of Los Angeles, and there's a famous place that's emerging. There's amazing cookies, and they sell them next door to a gas station. So I stopped in to pick them up, and there was all these people coming in and out, and they had 50 different kinds of cookies. So I was fascinated by it. A young woman comes in rushing to get her order, and I said, "Oh, you've been here many times?" She goes, "Oh yeah, but I don't buy the cookies for myself. I'm an Uber driver, Uber Eats driver." She was running in and out to buy. It was just one of her stops. So to your point, supply chain, people wanting something, people, how are they going to get it? And if you've got bodies doing that, to your point, robotics. I mean, isn't that where we're headed?
Oh, we are headed that way. But again, it's because there's technology changes end to end across supply chain and logistics. Autonomous vehicles really give us incredible opportunities to do things that we wouldn't be able to do otherwise. But more importantly, it has a severe impact on companies that we've actually become accustomed to. So let's take a look at Amazon. So even Amazon could look at this, say, a decade from now and say, why do I have so many Rivian vans going out and making deliveries? Why don't I just incentivize the customer to go to this fulfillment center and pick up the package themselves? You know, why not? If I have them do that, I've reduced my costs. I can actually lower the price of the product to the customer. DoorDash and these other companies that deliver food, they're going to be impacted because people won't need their vehicles to make a delivery. They can just dispatch their own vehicle. Now, the challenge is going to be what percentage of cars eventually will be fully self-driving. So someone who has a 2010 Toyota FJ Cruiser, unless they could somehow retrofit something on it, that vehicle is never going to be autonomous. But we're going to see an increase in autonomous vehicles over the next 5 years and 10 years and 15. Probably within 10 years, everything we're talking about is going to be 100% commonplace. People will be dispatching their cars to go to Target and pick up things, to go to Walmart and pick up things. It's just going to revolutionize retail as we know it, food delivery as we know it. But it's because of the automation. It's because of the ability to leverage artificial intelligence and machine learning. And by incorporating these, integrating these, it gives us a really unique opportunity to totally change the way we operate as a society in the United States and frankly, globally.
I mean, you're making me think about where we've been, and I think accelerated by COVID, and then certainly with the introduction of kind of the current state of AI a few years ago with ChatGPT and everything that's emerging out of generative AI and agentic. It seems like there's something emerging or beginning to emerge around retail. But I guess I would like to ask Britton, like, is traditional retail dead?
Oh, 100%. I was one of the first to actually write about this topic. I wrote about it in 2019. And the argument I made is that if we do achieve some type of AI capability, and it turned out that we have OpenAI and Grok and Claude and all these capabilities now. But my argument was that if we get to the point where AI becomes our primary search engine, and then AI actually purchases the product for us, that greatly increases velocity. And the thing that I have preached from the beginning is that the biggest impact of AI on all companies is velocity. That's the ability to do things faster end-to-end across an enterprise. So you take a look at a company like Walmart. Walmart is heavily investing in AI. That's going to give Walmart the ability to come up with faster product lines, new product ideas. It's going to give them the ability to get those products manufactured faster, get those products in the store faster, but it's also going to give them the ability to get those products to the customer faster. Everything about Walmart is going to increase. But what's important is that Walmart is going to be able to leverage AI to reduce the total number of employees that they have to have. Walmart is going to be able to leverage robotics and automation to reduce the total number of people that they leverage to actually fulfill orders and manage their warehouses and so forth. And so Walmart's profit margin is going to skyrocket. And that's why I make the argument, well, then Walmart stops being a retailer and Walmart says, what else can I do? And Walmart says, you know what? I'm going to open up ChatGPT AI clinics inside my stores. And as we talked, I used ChatGPT this year to give me my annual physical, and I compared the results with a physical I then had done by my physician. There was no difference. ChatGPT was 100% correct. So Walmart could say, well, why don't we just simply leverage AI and we open up AI clinics? And now Walmart becomes one of the largest healthcare providers in the US. But then Walmart says, we're generating so much capital, why don't we become a bank? And now Walmart's a bank. Walmart becomes one of the largest financial institutions. These companies are going to be able to do things because AI is going to allow them to run their core business almost using a lights out methodology. They can set it and forget it. That's how efficient these operations are going to be. And now these massive companies move into other areas, move into other industries and so forth. So that's the thing that I think is fascinating. But a retailer who like Target, if Target doesn't get their act together and Target say, well, what can we be moving into? What can we be doing that really fits our model? They're going to really be challenged because there are going to be lots of startups come along and say, we can give you that type of product, but much cheaper than Target can. And so it's going to be easy to disrupt the slow movers, but AI, the ability of AI to allow me to search for a product, buy that product for me, and manage all the logistics behind the scenes, and then it arrives to me same day or next day, revolutionizes logistics and supply chain. But the main thing that we have to understand is that whole impact of velocity. Companies are going to have to be able to understand velocity, and then they're going to have to be able to implement supply chains and logistics that execute at a level of speed that they never imagined they would have to have. And that's going to be very challenging for many companies to adopt, which is why people like me who are experts in this and others, we're receiving lots of calls from companies saying, so just how would we increase the speed of our supply chain to 2x, 4x, 10x, that type of a thing?
I'm fascinated by this because, Sears, JCPenney are quintessential Blockbuster, these companies that no one thought would ever be disrupted. I mean, Blockbuster is certainly a great example of that. And what other companies have done, the Netflix of the world, the Ubers of the world, and just, Airbnb all the way through. And I think that's been just really accelerated with AI. Can I ask you, like, when you look at the landscape, we talked a lot about companies that might be challenged by the changes or the disruption, and certainly things that you see right up front that you're saying they should be doing or could be doing, and certainly some are doing it well, as to your point. Do you see companies that are doing it really well that are undervalued and they're actually doing it right? And maybe the next question of that, which companies are doing it right and are undervalued, and why aren't other companies doing it that way?
So that's interesting. I don't think there's any companies I'm going to name and criticize them because they maybe aren't doing it right, because this is so new that a lot of companies still don't even have an ability to understand what it is they're supposed to be doing. But I will look at a company like Uber. I think Uber is doing a great job. They definitely understand that they're going to be challenged by, full self-driving vehicles, and they're looking to make changes. They've been investing in technology. So I certainly think they're doing well. A company like Tesla's doing fabulous. I would have to rate Tesla probably at the top of the list of the company that's doing it better than anyone else. Elon Musk understands it's irrelevant if I come to market with a new Model 3 or I come to market with a Model 4, because the future of my company is on robotaxis, full self-driving vehicles, and autonomous robots. So that's what he's putting his faith in, and he's absolutely going to do everything he can to turn that vision into a reality. But then I look at a company like DoorDash, and I say, well, DoorDash, you're now worth about $100 billion or whatever they are. They're worth a substantial amount. Their stock is doing well. But I'm not seeing a lot of big thinking from the part of Tony Xu, the CEO of DoorDash. And so one of the things that I recommended to DoorDash, I said, why are you not acquiring Lyft? Acquire Pony AI, implement Pony AI's technology into vehicles for Lyft, become a direct competitor to Tesla, but hire Travis Kalanick to run it for you. And that, to me, is what's missing. there are these really cool ideas out there that could become a reality. But a lot of companies aren't pulling the trigger on them. And I think the reason why they're not pulling the trigger is there's still a level of hesitancy of, is AI real? Is this really going to stick around? Or are we going to wake up a month from now and someone says, oh my gosh, we figured it out. This is it. This is the best that AI can be. I don't foresee that happening, but I do see a level of hesitation on this. And I wrote about this, and I had executives from DoorDash reach out and say, oh my gosh, that's actually brilliant. We should be doing that. So I said, then why don't you do it? And they couldn't respond, or they wouldn't respond. So that's the thing. When you can think big like Elon Musk and have no fear, you are absolutely going to be a superstar. You're going to have a superstar company.
When you get called and you get asked to come in and advise, or people are asking for your insights, I mean, you're looking kind of on end to end, I'm assuming, but you also probably go down to more granular detail use cases or gaps in the kind of logistics supply chain space. Do you have a framework? How do you approach that? How do you advise companies in kind of a logistics strategy?
So I served in the Marines for 6 years. And in the Marines, we always use these maps when we go out to the field. I was a tank commander, then I re-enlisted and went into the infantry, then I got put into a scout sniper platoon. Everything we did was on these maps, and these maps had grid squares. And a grid square is 1,000 meters on all sides. At least one side has to be 1,000 meters. So it's these maps, and they have these little tiny grid squares. And I remember looking at that and saying, I wonder why companies don't use this. And I kept thinking, there's got to be a way to come up with something. And I get out of the Marine Corps, and I earn my bachelor's, and I start working in different companies. And then I go on and I earn 3 master's degrees. And then I became a consultant for Deloitte, and I became a consultant for Capgemini. I provided consulting to McKinsey and other companies. And what I realized is that, you know what? The biggest challenge that companies face is that they need to sell more of their stuff. They need to create more customers. No matter what industry, no matter what business, the purpose of a company is to do one thing, create a customer. We know that for a fact. And so I said, well, I wonder why we couldn't take these grid squares and overlay it around the city, over the top of a city, and do analysis to identify of these grid squares, what percentage of people in each of those grid squares shop at my store or buy my product. And I'm like, I think that would work. So I created this methodology called GRID, Geospatial Response to Increase Density and Demand. It's on my LinkedIn profile. I get questions about this all the time. I wrote it, I think just last week or whatever. And GRID is what I really rely on. Because what I do is I look at everything a company does. I look at what DoorDash is doing. That's how I came up with the idea for DoorDash to acquire Lyft. I'm like, so what's DoorDash doing today? What percentage of their business is in each of these grids? Okay, great. But what company could come along and erase their market share in these grids? And that's when I started thinking of Tesla and their full self-driving vehicles. And I said, well, what would be the impact if Tesla really went big in food, picking up food and having their own drivers, their own car owners send their own cars out? And what I found is they would take away more than 50% of DoorDash's business. That fast. And so I'm like, so what could DoorDash do to prevent that? And I'm like, DoorDash becomes Uber. And how does DoorDash become Uber? They acquire Lyft. They implement Pony AI technology into the vehicles and other partnerships, and they hire Travis Kalanick. And they say, Travis, you want to get revenge on Uber? Well, here's your chance. And Travis Kalanick then says, I'm going to reimagine everything DoorDash does. And I'm going to reimagine everything DoorDash does by leveraging autonomous vehicles. We're getting into robots, but we're getting into better strategic partnerships. And when I did that, I leveraged GRID to come up with a strategy where I said, if I'm Tony Zhu and I'm the CEO of DoorDash, I'm copying this strategy. But I've done that for Walmart. I did that for Amazon. I was the first person to recommend Amazon to acquire Whole Foods. I used GRID to come up with that strategy. In 2019, I was the first person to say, I think Microsoft and Walmart should partner to acquire TikTok. Everybody laughed. Everyone said I was an idiot. Even people who follow me on LinkedIn were sending me messages. We love you, Britton, but you can't say stuff like that because people won't take you serious. And I knew I was 100% correct. almost exactly to the day, 1 year later, in August of 2020, Walmart and Microsoft announced they're partnering to acquire TikTok. But because they waited too long, all of the things that I said would prevent them from acquiring TikTok, political climate, so forth, had occurred, and they couldn't do it. But I use grid for everything. I guess the way I would summarize it is this. I leverage methodologies I learned from being a consultant, but I look at everything in terms of if it was a battle, if it was a war, and I have to defeat you, what strategy do I need to do that? And so I don't have one methodology, I have two. And by combining them, I come up with really accurate recommendations. And I don't call them predictions, I really call them recommendations.
This grid approach, and I love the background on it. I mean, we're talking about Amazon, Walmart, Kroger. These are big brands. I just heard recently, because of AI, there are going to be more billionaires created in the next few years than we've ever had. Two young guys in the garage are going to be becoming a billionaire because of some new company they're going to create, accelerate. And I would ask you, some of them aren't just going to be developing code with AI. They're going to be moving business. They're going to be disrupting these flagship companies, whether the ones we're talking about or others. But some of these technologies that they're bringing to market, that every prediction is telling us, there's going to be more billionaires created. It's going to include supply chain. It's going to include some of the things that we're talking about. What is the most critical supply chain related decisions that a startup should be making in their first year?
Well, the primary thing that a startup has to understand is, first of all, so who are my customers? Why do I exist? What is it I'm really trying to accomplish? But who are my customers, and what kind of service does my customer want? What do they really expect me to provide? And so, do my customers want everything delivered in 30 minutes? Is it a product that really isn't that critical? They're going to love it, but they would say, sure, deliver it in 3 to 5 days. I don't care. You know, they have to figure that all out. Now, we're getting past the point of anyone even wanting things next day. So they're going to be, the people who start these companies need to say, so how do I leverage my supply chain to enable growth? That is the thing. And that's why I came up with that phrase, because I didn't think everybody talking about supply chain really understood that it's irrelevant if I optimize the supply chain. It's irrelevant if I'm able to reduce my working capital because I've optimized my inventory levels. That's a nice to have. That's table stakes. But the purpose of that supply chain is to enable my growth. The only reason why I have a supply chain as a company is to grow. Nothing else matters. You know, why does Ford Motor Company have a supply chain? They want to get all those parts and manufacture those cars, and they want to get those cars out to the dealerships and sell them as fast as possible. Why? Because that's how they grow. And so startups, for those of you watching this who are starting companies, take my advice. Understand this phrase. The purpose of a supply chain is to do one thing, enable growth. And so startups have to identify, what supply chain do I need to enable my growth based on my product characteristics? A company that sells something like this needs a much different supply chain than somebody who sells the desk that my laptop is sitting on. They each require a different supply chain, but those supply chains will determine whether or not those companies grow.
The basis of grid still applies, but they have to think a different way. And I think a lot of the AI kind of created development that you're seeing right now is going to move into the space that you're an expert in. So I find it super interesting. And I think that intersection of AI and what's being brought to market right now, especially the last year or two and going forward, are going to need services like you. Hey, let's move into a speed round of quick questions. So let me ask you, what part of the logistics ecosystem do you think is going to cease to exist in, say, the next 5 years?
More than likely, any company that has their own transportation department, people who are doing order tracking and things like that, that will all cease to exist. That's really low value labor, and all of that can be converted to AI. Matter of fact, there are companies doing that today. So it would be rare that you would have companies even needing those departments, because they can basically just have that provided by any number of companies, via an online service or a SaaS model or something like that. or AI would manage it 100%.
Moving fast. I mean, it's crazy what we're seeing, not just every couple of weeks, every day. There's something new that I'm reading about, watching, learning, someone's telling me about. You've already mentioned some big players that you're kind of tracking and making recommendations that they may be taking on a new role. But like, there's a lot of us who don't know the industry certainly as intimately as you do. Is there a player out there? Is there someone in the space that you follow, that you watch, that you think is going to be dominant tomorrow?
Again, I keep looking at Tesla. Tesla's doing great. But there's some interesting startups out there. So there's one called BidShop. And BidShop is a company that understands that consumers are absolutely being challenged by inflation. The price of groceries has gone up by over 50% in some cases. The prices are simply sky high. And so what BidShop figured out is this. What if they create a third party, create this company BidShop, and instead of consumers going to Instacart to order their online groceries, they go to BidShop. They buy their groceries on BidShop, but they just select the groceries they want. There's no prices on anything. And what happens is BidShop accumulates all those orders, and then they hold an auction. And they actually bid out to retailers and CPG companies and wholesalers to fulfill those orders. And we're at a level now where there are millions and millions of online orders just for groceries. And so if that volume was removed from Instacart and it now goes to BidShop, BidShop can say to those retailers, you can't ignore us because you, Mr. Kroger, make up 1,250,000 of these orders that you could actually be shipping from your store on an annual basis. And so you have to take part in this. And so I really followed the concept of auction sciences. I researched it. 2 Stanford professors won the Nobel Prize 2 years ago. And so I actually took a lot of what they did and I designed this concept for leveraging auctions to actually bid out online groceries, but also to bid out anything you buy retail, to bid out airplane tickets and hotel rooms and everything. It just so happened that the team running BidShop contacted me. They read my articles that I'd written about an online model, and they opened up BidShop. But they're the ones who are doing the most of it. I have a very small part. It was just I came up with the concept. But I think BidShop is going to do wonders in that. But there are other companies that are going to be leveraging AI to do very similar things as well. So it's not just the movement of things that are changing, it's how we price those things and buy those things. And in China's leveraging similar models related to auctions and bulk buying. So the way we buy things is going to change, and the company that's going to get disrupted will be Priceline and Expedia. A company like BidShop could put both of them out of business. And I don't know whether BidShop will do it, but somebody using that model will.
Fantastic. I mean, I think we're seeing statistics from World Economic Forum and other studies about the number of jobs that are going to be displaced or transformed and disrupted, if you will. One of the basis of why I'm so excited about the space, but also concerned about it. I guess with that in mind, we'll kind of wrap up with a few more. But first of all, Britton, thank you for the time. I guess the question I would have is, I feel like sometimes life is really about a series of learning and teaching and kind of giving back. As you kind of look at your younger self, if there's someone coming into this industry, maybe just coming out of college, and they're looking at the market and they want to kind of get into the space that you have found yourself in and now kind of leading expert in the space, what would you tell that younger person who wants to become an expert or a consultant in the supply chain and logistics industry? What would you tell them?
Learn how to tell a story, because AI, ChatGPT and these other AI platforms can give you all the information you need. But what you need is the ability to take all this data, to take everything that AI returns, and you need the ability to step back and say, okay, this is really interesting, this is great, but what's truly best for that company? What's truly best for that startup? What supply chain do they really need? And you need to be able to do this across multiple industries. I've worked oil and gas, chemicals, manufacturing, retail, mining. I've worked across nearly every industry out there. And I've learned how to be successful in those industries because I asked so many questions and I truly wanted to learn how to be successful in those industries. And so by being able to tell a story, that's how I'm able to take grid and not just say, wow, this is a really cool thing. So you just mentioned a minute ago, well, there's lots of people being laid off. There's lots of people being laid off and replaced by AI. Social Security is going to be harmed. So I wrote a couple of weeks ago, I said, well, then the way to save Social Security is you tax AI agents. The way you let people survive is you create universal basic income. So how do you do that? You tax AI agents. You take the gold in Fort Knox and you basically say it's no longer $40 an ounce, it's $3,000 an ounce. You take the 200,000 Bitcoins that are in Washington, D.C., that are basically held by the government, and you take those and you basically work and you create a way to generate massive amounts of income, to create a universal basic income that's not like an unemployment payment, but it's enough to allow the white collar workers and the blue collar workers to do the most important thing, keep their house. And by keeping their houses, they then have an opportunity to find ways to generate income, generate revenue, and now they're keeping the economy going. But because I have an ability to tell a story, I felt confident in sharing my ideas. And anyone can read these things I come up with on Britton Ladd on my LinkedIn profile. But that to me is a skill that I'm so grateful for that I developed. So I have no fear of talking to anyone because no matter how big of a problem they tell me, I'm confident I can figure it out. And then I can tell you a story of how to solve it.
I love it. You heard it right here. If anybody comes up with taxing an AI agent, I think we have to credit Mr. Britton Ladd. It's first I've heard of it. And now you've got me thinking. I think I'm going to double click into that. I love the idea conceptually. I think we're already starting to see agent to agents, so multi-agents or fleets or teams of AI agents. And the fact that we might have companies that are run by 3 or 4 people with thousands of agents, it does beg the question, where does the tax basis go? And I think you may have just floated an idea.
It is. I truly believe it's the most logical idea. A company that has 1,500 or 20,000 AI agents, you basically could say, okay, well, you're going to pay their 6%. If they were a human, you're going to pay 6% into Social Security. So we keep the Social Security fund going. You just simply tax a percentage of each AI agent to come up with enough revenue to cover the fact we don't have as many workers. But the beauty of the idea is we no longer have a shortage of workers. We have hundreds of millions of new workers, maybe 1 billion new workers. They're just AI agents. And imagine if all we did was tax every AI agent $10. We would be able to sustain Social Security and run our government and give people universal basic income with no problem, without disrupting the ability of these companies to operate. To me, it's the only idea I could come up with, frankly, that I thought would work. It might be a dumb idea. There might be some super smart people out like, well, Britton, you're an idiot.
Have you written about this in detail yet, Britton?
Yeah, I did. I wrote about it. I have 2 posts on LinkedIn about universal basic income and taxing AI agents.
Taxing AI agents. What a great way to wrap this up. I mean, listen, I have not read that post. So maybe that's the next thing. Where can people find you? Do you have a website? Your LinkedIn profile is very active.
I have brittonladd.com. I'm actually changing that. A lot of people reached out and asked me to add some things, but LinkedIn is where I like to share my knowledge as much as possible. So if they go to LinkedIn and find Britton Ladd, and then you'll see my activity, and you could just scroll through my articles and my LinkedIn posts, and you can read them for free. You can use whatever information I put on there. I put it there to share my ideas. I really, really respect people. I really want people to succeed. And I just love sharing my ideas. But what I like most of all, I like telling a story. And that's what my LinkedIn posts allow me to do.
Britton, what a fantastic conversation. Thank you for the time today. Really been great to connect with you a little bit more and just quite honestly learn what you know through your point of view. So thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. I really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, and listen, anybody listening to this, if this made you more interested in the future of logistics, please share it with a friend. subscribe, check out more confessions from the front lines of disruption. And by all means, reach out to Britton Ladd online. He'd be happy to chat with you. And certainly for those younger folks, I'm sure Britton would enjoy that as well.
100%. I always am happy to speak to individuals who have an interest in supply chain logistics or frankly, any topic.
Britton, thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Talk soon.